The red warning lights flashed across the bridge of the Galactic Federation research ship as senior researcher Zixthara stared at the data screen in complete disbelief. Her 3 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of extreme confusion among her people, the Velthari. The numbers on the screen could not be real. They had to be wrong. "Run the scan again," she ordered her assistant Krento. Her voice carried the clicking sounds that her species used when stressed. "I have run it 17 times, senior researcher," Krento replied, his own stress evident in the way his tentacles writhed. "The results are the same. This planet registers as a Class 12 death world." Zixthara felt her breathing organs. Titan, Class 12 was the highest danger rating in their system. Only 3 other planets in the known galaxy carried such a rating, and all of them were lifeless balls of rock covered in acid rain or molten metal. No intelligent life had ever been found on a Class 12 world. It was simply impossible. "And, you detected signs of intelligent life on this death world?" she asked again. "Not just intelligent life," Krintle said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Advanced civilization. They have space travel, complex communication networks, and cities that span entire continents." Across the galaxy, Captain Jake Morrison sat. In the pilot seat of his cargo ship, the Endeavor, completely unaware that he was about to make history. He was hauling mining equipment to the Jupiter stations, just another routine run through what humans considered the empty space near their home system. Jake sipped his coffee and watched the stars through his viewport. Thinking about his daughter's birthday party next week, the coffee was hot enough to burn the mouth of most alien species in the galaxy, but Jake barely noticed the temperature. He had grown up drinking coffee this hot. His grandmother had made it this way, and her grandmother before her. It was just normal. A strange blip appeared on his radar screen. Jake frowned and leaned forward. The object was big, much bigger than any human ship he knew about. It was also moving in a pattern that made no sense for any cargo hauler or military vessel. "This is Captain Morrison of the cargo ship Endeavor," he said into his radio. "Unknown vessel, please identify yourself." The response came in perfect English, though the voice sounded strange, like it was being filtered through water. "Greetings. Human vessel, this is Federation scout ship Harmony. We request permission to approach for peaceful contact." Jake nearly dropped his coffee cup. Federation, that was not a word used by any human organization he knew about. And the way the voice said human made it sound like they were talking about his species from the outside. "Federation scout ship, are you saying you're not human?" "That is correct, Captain Morrison. We are representatives of the Galactic Federation. We have been observing your species from a safe distance. We would like to establish first contact." Protocols. Jake's hands started shaking slightly. This was it. This was what every human had wondered about since they first looked up at the stars. They were not alone. "Okay," Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'm probably not the right person for this, but I'm willing to talk." 2 hours later, Jake found himself floating in the docking bay of the alien ship. The gravity was lighter than Earth normal, and the air smelled strange, but he could breathe it. The aliens had assured him it was safe, though they seemed surprised that he was willing to remove his helmet at all. The first alien he met was Zixthara herself. She was tall and thin, with blue-gray skin and 3 large eyes arranged in a triangle on her face. She wore a complex environmental suit that covered most of her body. "Captain Morrison," she said, her voice coming through a translation device on her suit. "We are honored to meet you. However, we must express our confusion about your species and your world." "Confusion?" Jake asked. "What's confusing about us?" Zixthara's 3 eyes blinked in that sequence again. "Captain, our scans indicate that your planet is one of the most dangerous worlds we have ever encountered. The radiation levels alone should prevent any complex life from developing. Yet your species not only survived, but created a thriving civilization." Jake scratched his head. "Radiation levels? You mean like from the sun?" "Your sun emits deadly radiation that would kill most Federation species within hours of exposure," Zixthara explained. Yet our scouts observed your people lying directly under this radiation for what you call recreation. You mean sunbathing? Jake laughed. Yeah, people like to get a tan. Though you have to be careful not to get burned. The alien researcher made notes on a device that looked like it was made of crystal and light. Your atmospheric composition is also highly unusual. The oxygen content is so high it would be toxic to most species. And your weather patterns involve violent electrical discharges and wind speeds that could destroy our ships. Jake was starting to understand why they seemed so nervous. You're talking about thunderstorms and lightning. That's just normal weather where I come from. Normal weather, Zixtara repeated, as if the words did not make sense together. 3 days later, Dr. Lisa Park found herself aboard the Federation ship, trying to explain Earth to a group of alien scientists who seemed convinced that humans were either lying or completely insane. Lisa was a xenobiologist, though until this week that had been a purely theoretical field of study. Dr. Park, said Quindle, a researcher who looked like a cross between a jellyfish and a flower, our analysis of your planet's geological activity indicates constant seismic instability. Your landmasses move and shift regularly. How does your species build permanent structures? Well, we do have earthquakes, Lisa admitted, but we've learned to build structures that can handle them. In places like California and Japan, buildings are designed to sway with the movement instead of breaking. You build structures that are designed to move? Another alien asked. This one looked like a walking tree with too many arms. It's actually pretty clever engineering, Lisa said. We've learned to work with our planet instead of fighting it. The aliens exchanged looks that Lisa was learning to recognize as confusion mixed with fear. Commander Rick Hayes arrived the next day with a full diplomatic team. Rick was a career military officer who had been chosen to lead Earth's first official contact with an alien species. He was a calm, practical man who had seen action in 3 different conflicts and thought he was prepared for anything. He was not prepared for aliens, who fainted when he mentioned tornadoes. Commander Hayes, Zixtara said during their first formal meeting, we need to understand something about your species. Our preliminary observations suggest that humans actively seek out dangerous situations. Is this accurate? Rick thought. About it. I guess that depends on what you mean by dangerous. We do like challenges. People climb mountains, go skydiving, race cars, that kind of thing. Your people voluntarily leap from aircraft? The alien's voice rose several octaves. With parachutes, Rick clarified. It's actually pretty safe when done right. You consider falling through the atmosphere to be safe? Rick was beginning to realize that humans and aliens had very different ideas about what qualified as dangerous. Where are you folks from, anyway? What's your homeworld like? Zixtara activated a holographic display showing a world covered in gentle, rolling hills under a soft pink sky. Our world has stable weather, minimal geological activity, and protective atmospheric layers that filter out harmful radiation. The most dangerous creature on our planet is roughly equivalent to what you would call a butterfly. Rick stared at the peaceful world on the display and tried to imagine growing up somewhere so calm and safe it looked boring. That's nice, he said politely. Very peaceful. Commander Hayes, may I ask you a personal question? Sure. Are you not afraid of your own planet? Rick considered the question seriously. He thought about hurricanes and blizzards, about forest fires and flash floods, about all the ways Earth could kill a person who was not careful or prepared or just unlucky. No, he said finally. Earth's not something to be afraid of. It's home. You learn to live with it, to respect it. It makes you strong. The alien researcher made more notes. Rick had the feeling that humans had just become the subject of a very intensive scientific study. 3 months after first contact, the Federation research vessel landed in what humans called a meadow outside Colorado Springs. To the aliens, it looked like a battlefield waiting to happen. Their environmental suits were designed for exploring gas giants and the surfaces of stars. Yet they still felt nervous about stepping onto Earth's surface. Dr. Amy Chun stood waiting for them at the landing site, wearing nothing but jeans, a t-shirt, and a light jacket. The sight of her casual clothing sent waves of panic through the alien research team. Their sensors detected dozens of atmospheric toxins, dangerous radiation levels, and unstable weather patterns. Yet this human stood there like she was waiting. For a bus? "Welcome to Earth," Amy said with a smile as the aliens emerged from their ship. Each of them wore suits that made them look like walking tanks. "I hope you had a good trip." Quendel, the jellyfish-like alien, spoke through his suits. Communication system. "Dr. Chun, our readings indicate that this location is experiencing dangerous atmospheric conditions. Should we not seek shelter immediately?" Amy looked around at the clear blue sky and gentle breeze. A few white clouds drifted overhead, and birds sang in the nearby trees. "It's actually a beautiful day. Perfect weather for our tour." "Perfect weather?" Zixthora's 3 eyes blinked rapidly. "Dr. Chun, we are detecting electromagnetic disturbances in your upper atmosphere. Chemical compounds that would be toxic on 17 different Federation worlds and solar radiation levels that exceed our safety protocols." "Oh, you mean the ozone and stuff," Amy said. Yeah, our atmosphere has a lot going on. But that's what makes it work. The chemicals you're worried about are mostly just oxygen and water vapor." The aliens made frantic notes on their recording devices. The idea that toxic chemicals could be beneficial was against everything they knew about atmospheric science. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Miller joined them 20 minutes later, jogging up the path that led from the research facility. He was breathing hard and sweating, having just finished his morning run. The aliens immediately assumed he was suffering from some kind of atmospheric poisoning. "Colonel Miller appears to be in distress," announced Dr. Morduan, a tree-like alien whose species communicated through color changes in their bark. "Should we provide medical assistance?" "I'm fine," Steve said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Just got done with my 5-mile run. Great morning for it." "You voluntarily exerted yourself to the point of fluid loss and respiratory distress?" Quendel asked. "For recreation?" "Exercise keeps you healthy," Steve explained. "Plus, I like running outdoors. Much better than being stuck in a gym." The aliens watched in fascination as Steve's breathing returned to normal and his body temperature regulated itself. Their own species required carefully controlled environments and would need medical intervention to recover from such physical stress. "Perhaps we should begin the nature walk," Amy suggested. "I thought we'd start with something gentle. There's a nice trail through the forest that's perfect for beginners." The word forest sent the aliens into another round of panicked discussion. Their scouts had reported that Earth's forests contained thousands of species and complex predator-prey relationships, plants that produced airborne toxins, and environmental hazards that changed by the hour. The trail Amy led them on would have been considered a pleasant stroll by any human child. For the aliens, it was like walking through a chemical weapons facility during an earthquake. Their suits detected poison in the air from flowers, deadly acids in the soil from decomposing leaves, and enough allergens to kill half the Federation Council. "This plant here is called poison ivy," Amy said, pointing to a 3-leafed vine growing beside the trail. "Humans have to be careful not to touch it because it causes a rash." "A chemical weapon grows freely in your environment?" Zixthara asked. "It's not really a weapon," Amy explained. "It's just a plant that evolved to protect itself. Most humans learn to recognize it as children." "Your children are taught to identify chemical weapons?" Amy paused, realizing how that might sound to someone from a safer world. "I guess you could put it that way. We teach kids about lots of things that could hurt them. Poison ivy, stinging nettles, which berries not to eat, basic survival stuff." Steve pointed to a squirrel that was watching them from a nearby tree. "That little guy there is completely harmless to humans." The alien sensors immediately identified the squirrel as a potential threat. It had sharp claws, powerful teeth, and the ability to move at high speed through 3-dimensional terrain. On most Federation worlds, such a creature would be classified as a dangerous predator. "It appears to be armed with natural weapons," Morduan observed. "He's just looking for nuts," Steve said. "Squirrels are actually pretty cute," The aliens watched the squirrel leap from branch to branch, performing maneuvers that would require advanced technology for most Federation species to accomplish. The fact that such creatures were considered harmless by humans was noted for further study. 20 minutes into their walk, the first real test came. Dark clouds had been building on the horizon, and now the distant rumble of thunder could be heard. Amy checked her phone and frowned slightly. "Looks like we might get some rain," she said. "There's a thunderstorm moving in." The aliens immediately activated emergency protocols. Red lights flashed on their suits, and several of them began backing toward their ship. "We must evacuate immediately," Quindle announced. "Our sensors detect massive electromagnetic weapons discharging in the atmosphere." "It's just a thunderstorm," Amy said. "We get them pretty regularly during this time of year." "You consider atmospheric weapons fire to be regular weather?" Steve looked up at the approaching clouds. "This one looks like it might be a good one. Love a good thunderstorm." The first lightning bolt lit up the sky, followed by a crack of thunder. That made the alien suits register impact alerts. To them, it sounded like artillery fire. To the humans, it was just the opening notes of nature's music. "The electromagnetic discharge you just witnessed would disable most Federation technology," Zixthara said. "Yet you remain calm?" "Lightning is actually really beautiful," Amy said. "As long as you're not standing under a tree or on a golf course, it's perfectly safe to watch." The rain started as a light drizzle, then quickly intensified into a proper downpour. Amy and Steve stood in it without concern, letting the water soak through their clothes. The aliens watched in horror as the humans allowed their bodies to be exposed to what their sensors registered as contaminated precipitation. "The liquid falling from your atmosphere contains dissolved atmospheric chemicals," Morduon warned. "It will cause chemical burns to exposed tissue." Amy laughed and held out her hand to catch raindrops. "It's just water. We drink this stuff. You consume atmospheric precipitation?" "Well, we clean it first," Steve said. "But yeah, rain is just water that evaporated from the oceans and lakes." The storm passed as quickly as it had arrived, leaving the air fresh and clean. Amy and Steve looked refreshed, their hair damp and their clothes clinging to them. The aliens looked like they had just survived a military assault. Dr. Sandy Brooks arrived as the rain was ending, carrying a picnic basket and wearing sandals. The sight of a human with exposed feet sent the aliens into another round of emergency discussions. "Perfect timing," Sandy said. "I brought lunch. Thought we could eat outside since it's such a nice day after the rain." "You wish to consume nutrition in the open environment?" Quendel asked, following an atmospheric chemical attack. "It's called a picnic," Sandy explained. "People love eating outdoors after a rain shower. Everything smells so fresh and clean." She opened the basket and began pulling out sandwiches, fruit, and bottles of water. The alien sensors went crazy as they detected what they classified as dozens of potential toxins and allergens. "This fruit contains natural acids that would be harmful to most Federation species," Zixthara observed. "These are just apples and oranges," Sandy said, taking a bite of an apple. "Kids eat these for snacks. Your offspring regularly consume mild toxins?" "They're not toxins to us," Sandy explained. "They're food." "Healthy food?" The aliens watched in fascination as the humans ate their lunch in the open air, surrounded by potential dangers that didn't seem to affect them at all. Birds flew overhead, insects buzzed around the food, and a light breeze carried what the alien suits identified as dozens of airborne chemicals. "Your species appears to have evolved alongside these environmental threats," Morduon concluded. "You do not just survive them, you seem to find them pleasant." Amy nodded. "I guess we're just used to it. This is home, you know. We wouldn't want to live anywhere else." The aliens looked around at the forest, the clearing sky, and the humans who seemed so comfortable in what they considered a hostile environment. They were beginning to realize that understanding humanity would require completely rethinking everything they knew about life in the universe. Dr. Tlinsith had spent her entire career studying alien biology for the Federation Medical Corps. She had examined creatures from gas giants, crystal beings that lived in asteroid fields, and energy-based life forms that existed in the hearts of stars. Nothing had prepared her for humans. The Federation medical officer stood in the research facility's medical bay, staring at the scan results of Dr. Ben Taylor from the Centers for Disease Control. Her forearms trembled as she tried to process what she was seeing. According to every medical principle she knew, the creature standing in front of her should be dead. "Dr. Taylor," she said, her voice containing harmonics that indicated deep confusion, "these readings cannot be accurate. Your cardiovascular system appears to have multiple redundant pathways. Why would evolution create such inefficiency?" Ben smiled and tapped his chest. "Redundancy isn't inefficient when you live on a world like Earth. If one pathway gets blocked, the others can take over. Humans can survive heart attacks, strokes, and all kinds of internal damage that would kill most creatures." "Heart attacks?" Tlinseth's medical scanner began making alarmed beeping sounds. "Your primary circulatory pump can fail and you survive? With proper medical care, yeah? Some people have survived multiple heart attacks. The human body is pretty good at healing itself." Tlinseth made frantic notes. Her own species would die instantly if their circulation system suffered any significant damage. The idea that a being could survive the failure of such a critical system was beyond her understanding. Dr. Kate Rogers entered the medical bay carrying her tablet with the day's test results. Kate was a pediatrician who had volunteered to help explain human development to the aliens. She had no idea that what she considered basic childcare would horrify an entire research team. "The infant development scans are ready," Kate announced. "Though I should warn you, some of the data might seem unusual if you're not familiar with human children." Tlinseth activated the holographic display and immediately wished she hadn't. The images showed human infants in various stages of development, and every single image registered as a medical emergency on her equipment. "These small humans appear to be critically underdeveloped," Tlinseth said. "They cannot walk, feed themselves, or communicate effectively." "How do they survive?" "Human babies are born pretty helpless," Kate explained. "They need constant care for the first few years of life. But that's normal for us." "Normal?" Quindle had joined them and was studying the scans with his own medical equipment. "Dr. Rogers, our analysis indicates that these infants regularly place foreign objects into their feeding orifices. This behavior should result in immediate toxicity." Kate laughed. "You mean babies putting things in their mouths?" "Yeah, they do that constantly. It's how they explore the world. We have to baby-proof everything to keep them safe." "You must modify your environment to protect your offspring from your environment?" "Pretty much. Babies will try to eat anything they can reach, dirt, small toys, bugs, whatever. Their immune systems are still developing, so they can usually handle it." The aliens exchanged the looks. They were learning meant complete bafflement. The idea that young beings would deliberately consume random environmental materials was shocking enough. The fact that they survived doing so was impossible. Marine Sergeant Don Murphy arrived for his scheduled physical fitness demonstration. Don was a typical Marine, built like a tank and proud of his physical conditioning. He had no idea that his routine workout was about to challenge everything the aliens knew about biological limits. "Ready when you are, Doc," Don said, stretching his arms and legs. Tlinseth attached monitoring devices to Dan's body, expecting to document the physical capabilities of a human specimen. Her equipment immediately began registering readings that seemed too high to be real. "Sergeant Murphy, our scans indicate you are carrying additional mass approximately 3 times your body weight," she said. "How are you able to move with such a burden?" Don looked down at the weight belt around his waist and the loaded pack on his back. "This is just my gear, standard load for a Marine. We train to carry a lot more than this if we need to." "You regularly transport mass equivalent to multiple body weights?" "In combat situations, yeah, sometimes more. The record for a human carrying load is over 400 pounds, I think." Tlinseth's scanner made sounds that indicated critical system failure. Her own species could barely lift objects equal to their own body weight, and only for very short periods. "Perhaps we should begin with basic strength assessment," She suggested. Don approached the weight lifting station that the humans had set up for the demonstration. He started with what he considered a light warm-up weight, 150 pounds. The aliens. Equipment immediately registered a gravitational anomaly, convinced that some kind of artificial enhancement was being used. The gravitational field around the resistance training device has been altered, Morduan announced. We are detecting impossible force coefficients. That's just me lifting weights, Don said, easily pressing the barbell above his head. This is actually pretty light for me. He increased the weight to 250 pounds and began his normal workout routine. The aliens watched in silent horror as he lifted, pressed, and carried weights that would require mechanical assistance for any Federation. Species to move. Sergeant Murphy, Quindle said quietly, what is the maximum mass your species can manipulate? Depends on the person and the lift, Don replied, not even breathing hard. Human record for deadlifting is over 1,100 pounds. That's about half? A ton. The aliens' recording devices made sounds like electronic screaming. Dr. Paul Green arrived with the psychological evaluation team, just as Dan was finishing his demonstration. Paul was a psychologist who specialized in human behavior, though he was discovering that normal human psychology looked like severe mental illness to most alien species. Hope I'm not interrupting the physical tests, Paul said. But we're ready. For the psychological evaluation whenever you are. Federation psychologist Morduan activated his analysis equipment, designed to map the mental patterns of intelligent species. Dr. Green, we are prepared to document human cognitive processes. However, our preliminary observations have raised concerning questions, such as, your species appears to form emotional attachments to dangerous predators. We observed humans cohabiting with creatures that possess natural weapons and hunting instincts. Paul realized they were talking about pets. You mean dogs and cats? Yeah, humans love their pets. Dogs especially have been our companions for thousands of years. You deliberately live with predators? Dogs aren't predators anymore, not really. We domesticated them. They're more like family members now. Morduan's equipment registered patterns that it interpreted as severe psychological dysfunction. Dr. Green, cohabitation with predator species indicates a fundamental breakdown in survival instincts. Actually, it shows how good humans are at forming relationships, Paul explained. We don't just domesticate animals, we bond with them. Some people risk their lives to save their pets. Risk death for non-human creatures? Of course. People also risk their lives to save complete strangers. It's called heroism, and it's considered one of our best qualities. The psychological evaluation equipment made sounds that indicated complete system failure. The concept of deliberately risking personal safety for others, especially for members of different species, was so alien to Federation thinking that their computers couldn't process it. Dr. Green, Morduan said slowly, our analysis indicates that humans regularly engage in self-destructive behaviors for emotional satisfaction. You consume toxins for pleasure, expose yourselves to danger for excitement, and sacrifice personal safety for abstract concepts like honor? That's not self-destructive, Paul said. That's living. Humans don't just want to survive. We want to experience things. We want to feel alive. You seek out fear and pain for entertainment? Paul thought about roller coasters, horror movies, and extreme sports. I guess we do. Fear can be fun when you know you're actually safe. It gets the adrenaline going. You deliberately trigger stress responses for recreation. Adventure, challenge, excitement. Yeah, humans love that stuff. Life would be pretty boring without it. The aliens spent the rest of the session trying to understand how a species could evolve intelligence while actively seeking out dangerous situations. Their computers kept generating error messages when they tried to model human decision-making processes. Dr. Ben Taylor returned with the final medical reports as the psychological evaluation was ending. The physical exam results are in, he announced, though I'm not sure you're going to believe them. Twinseth reviewed the data with growing amazement. Dr. Taylor, according to these scans, human bone density exceeds that of most Federation species by a factor of 3. Your muscular system shows adaptations for extreme physical stress, and your nervous system ... double quote. What about our nervous system? It appears designed to function under conditions that would cause permanent damage to most intelligent species. Hi. Stress, physical trauma, environmental toxins. Your brains continue operating normally under circumstances that would shut down Federation neural networks. Ben nodded. Humans are pretty tough. We had to be growing up on Earth. The Federation Council's emergency session had been going on for 6 hours. Representatives from 47 different worlds sat in their protective chambers, all of them demanding the same thing: proof that Earth was really as dangerous as the research team claimed. The reports coming back from the human homeworld seemed too incredible to believe. Captain Julie Ross received the official request while she was reviewing security protocols at the Colorado Research Facility. The Federation wanted a comprehensive planetary survey to verify Earth's danger classification. Julie was a career officer with the Earth Defense Corps, and she had seen enough alien panic attacks over the past few weeks to know this was going to be interesting. They want to see the whole planet? She asked Commander Rick Hayes over the secure communication link. Everything, Rick confirmed. Oceans, continents, poles, deserts. They think we're making it all up. Julie looked out the window at the Rocky Mountains where snow was falling lightly even though it was late spring. Should we tell them about the weather variations first or just let them experience it? Let's go with the full tour, Rick said. They wanted proof. Dr. Greg Stone had been waiting his entire career for this moment. As one of Earth's leading biologists, he had studied life in every environment on the planet. Now he had the chance to show alien scientists just how incredible Earth's biodiversity really was. He had no idea that what he considered a routine nature tour would challenge everything the Federation knew about how life worked. The expedition started in the Amazon rainforest. The aliens arrived wearing their most advanced environmental suits, designed to protect them from every known biological hazard in the galaxy. They lasted exactly 47 minutes before their equipment started displaying critical failure warnings. Dr. Stone, Zixtara said, her voice tight with stress, our atmospheric analyzers have detected over 3,000 different chemical compounds in the air around us. Many of these register as lethal toxins. Greg breathed deeply, enjoying the rich, humid air of the jungle. That's the smell of life, he said. All those chemicals you're detecting are just plants and animals communicating with each other? Pheromones, defensive compounds, territorial markers. It's like a chemical internet of toxins. Not toxins to the creatures that live here, they're all adapted to it. Look around, this place is packed with life. The aliens looked around and saw exactly what Greg meant. Every surface was covered with some form of life. Trees climbed on other trees. Plants grew on plants that grew on rocks. Insects, birds, and mammals moved through the canopy in complex patterns that looked like organized warfare to the Federation observers. The biological density readings are impossible, Quindle announced. We are detecting more individual life forms in this small area than exist on most Federation worlds. The rainforest has the highest biodiversity on Earth, Greg explained. Scientists estimate there are over 1 million different species just in this ecosystem. 1 million species in a single environment? Could be more. We discover new ones all the time. A bird called somewhere in the canopy above them, and the aliens immediately registered it as a potential sonic weapon. To Greg, it was just a toucan saying hello. Dr. Stone, Morduan said carefully, our scans indicate that many of these life forms are engaged in what appears to be biological warfare. We detect organisms that inject toxins, release corrosive substances, and deploy projectile weapons. Greg looked around at the peaceful jungle scene. You mean things like thorns and stingers? That's just how plants and animals protect themselves. It's all part of the ecosystem. A butterfly landed on Greg's shoulder, its wings displaying bright warning colors that made the aliens' threat assessment systems go crazy. Greg smiled and held perfectly still until the butterfly flew away. That creature displayed warning coloration, indicating chemical weapons capability, Zixtara observed. Probably lots of butterflies are poisonous, but they're only dangerous if you try to eat them. Poison is an acceptable defense mechanism. It works. Bright colors warn predators to stay away. If they don't listen, they learn real quick. The next stop was the ocean, where Dr. Carol Lewis was waiting with a research vessel. Carol was a marine biologist who spent most of her time underwater, swimming with creatures that the aliens were convinced could destroy Federation battlecruisers. "Welcome to the Pacific," Carol said as they boarded her boat. "We're going to start with some shallow water observations, then work our way deeper." The aliens' first look at Earth's oceans nearly caused a diplomatic incident. Their sensors detected massive creatures moving in the depths, chemical weapons factories in the form of jellyfish, and pressure variations that would crush most Federation technology. "Dr. Lewis," Tlinseth said, her medical scanner making continuous alarm sounds, "the aquatic environment appears to contain biological weapons of mass destruction." "You mean whales and sharks?" Carol asked. "They're just animals, magnificent animals. The largest creatures we detected exceed the size of Federation battleships. Blue whales can get pretty big. They're filter feeders, though. They eat tiny shrimp-like creatures called krill." Carol put on her diving gear, preparing for a routine underwater survey. The aliens watched in horror as she prepared to enter what they considered a toxic chemical bath filled with biological weapons. "Dr. Lewis, you cannot enter that environment without proper protection," Quindle protested. "I've got my wetsuit and diving gear," Carol said. "That's all I need for a shallow dive." She slipped into the water and immediately began swimming around, completely comfortable in an environment that registered as lethal on every alien scanner. Fish swam around her, and she reached out to touch a sea turtle that was larger than most alien vehicles. "The human is making physical contact with armored predators," Morduan reported to his team. "Sea turtles aren't predators," Carol called from the water. "They're herbivores, completely harmless." A dolphin appeared and began swimming alongside Carol, clicking and whistling in what the aliens' computers identified as a complex communication system. Carol clicked back, having learned some basic dolphin language during her years of research. "The human is communicating with aquatic life forms using sonic frequencies," Zixtara observed. "Dolphins are really smart," Carol explained. "Some people think they might be almost as intelligent as humans." "Your planet contains multiple intelligent species?" "Dolphins, whales, octopi, some birds. Lots of animals are smarter than we used to think." The geological survey was conducted by Dr. Matt Brown, who specialized in what he called living geology. The aliens expected to find a stable planetary crust like most civilized worlds had. Instead, they discovered that Earth was essentially a dynamic system that never stopped moving and changing. "This is the San Andreas Fault," Matt explained as they stood on a rocky outcrop in California. "The whole west coast sits on a tectonic plate that's slowly moving north." "Your landmasses are in motion?" Zixtara asked. "All the time. The continents drift around, mountains rise and fall, new ocean floor gets created while old floor gets recycled. Earth is constantly rebuilding itself." The aliens' geological sensors went crazy as they detected the massive forces at work beneath their feet. What humans considered solid ground was actually floating on a sea of molten rock, constantly shifting and changing in patterns that would destroy most civilized infrastructure. "How do your cities survive such geological instability?" Morduan asked. "We build them to flex and move with the earthquakes," Matt said. "Japanese architecture is really advanced in that area. They've learned to work with the planet instead of fighting it." A minor earthquake chose that moment to demonstrate Matt's point. The ground shook gently for about 30 seconds, and Matt barely paused in his explanation. The aliens activated emergency protocols and prepared to evacuate. That It was just a little tremor, Matt said. Probably magnitude 3 or 4. You get used to them when you live here. You become accustomed to geological warfare? It's not warfare, it's just the planet being alive. The agricultural demonstration was Dr. Helen White's chance to show how humans had learned to work with their dangerous world instead of hiding from it. What she considered routine farming techniques looked like advanced biological warfare to the Federation observers. This is a typical farm in Iowa, Helen explained as they walked through rows of corn that towered over their heads. We grow most of our food crops in environments like this. Dr. White, Quindle said, our scans indicate that you have deliberately modified hundreds of different species for consumption purposes. That's called farming. Humans have been doing it for thousands of years. You have created biological weapons and then consumed them? Helen looked confused. Biological weapons? This is just corn. Our analysis indicates that this plant species has been genetically modified to produce increased nutritional density and resistance to environmental threats. Well, yeah. We bred corn to be bigger and more nutritious. Same with wheat, rice, potatoes, pretty much everything we eat. The aliens spent an hour documenting what they called controlled biological warfare for nutritional purposes. The solar storm warning came at 3:47 a.m., Earth time. Commander Alan Cross was asleep in his quarters at the orbital research station when the emergency alarms began screaming. He rolled out of bed, instantly awake, and checked the threat assessment. On his wall display, the numbers made him whistle softly. This is a big one, he muttered, pulling on his uniform dot in the Federation research vessel. Panic was spreading through every deck. The aliens had detected the massive solar flare while it was still racing across space toward Earth, and their computers were predicting total system failure for every piece of technology in the inner solar system. Emergency evacuation protocols activated, Zixthara announced to her research team. All personnel prepare for immediate departure from this system. How long do we have? Quindle asked, his tentacles writhing with stress. The stellar radiation burst will reach this location in approximately 14 hours. We must be beyond the outer system boundary before then. The Federation ship began emergency procedures to leave Earth's solar system. To them, a solar flare of this magnitude was a natural disaster that could only be survived by running away. The radiation would destroy their electronics, cook their crew, and turn their ship into a dead hulk floating in space on the human research station. Commander Cross was having a very different conversation with his crew. Okay, people, we've got a Class X solar flare heading our way, he announced over the station's communication system. This is the big league stuff. Everyone knows the drill. Dr. Nancy Davis was already at her engineering console, reviewing the station's shielding systems. Nancy had designed most of the radiation protection herself, using principles that the Federation considered impossible. Her shields didn't try to block cosmic radiation completely. They channeled it, redirected it, and in some cases actually used it to power the station's systems. Shields are coming online, Nancy reported. We should be buttoned up tight in about 6 hours. Good. What about the orbital platforms? Already moving to safe positions. The automated systems kicked in. As soon as the warning came through, Commander Cross nodded and opened a communication channel to Earth's surface. Ground control, this is Orbital Station 1, confirming receipt of solar flare warning. We are implementing standard storm protocols. Copy that, Orbital 1, came the reply from Houston. Weather's going to get interesting up there. Just another day in space, Cross replied. The aliens intercepted this communication and assumed the humans were suffering from some kind of mass delusion. How could they be so calm about an approaching stellar catastrophe? They appear to be remaining in the danger zone, Morduan observed. Perhaps their technology is too primitive to detect the true scope of this threat. No, Zixthara said, studying her sensors. They know exactly what is coming. Their warning systems are more advanced than ours. They detected the flare 17 minutes before we did. Then why are they not evacuating? I do not know. Colonel Frank White was preparing for what most humans would consider a routine, if dangerous, mission. As one of Earth's most experienced space pilots, Frank had flown through solar storms before. It was never fun, but it was part of the job when you lived around a star that regularly threw cosmic tantrums. Nancy, I'm going to need the heavy shielding. On the shuttle, Frank said as he reviewed his mission parameters, we've got satellites to deploy before this thing hits. Already loaded, Nancy replied. Extra power cells, backup systems, and enough coffee to keep you awake for the duration. Coffee? Frank grinned. You know me too well. The aliens watched in complete bewilderment as Frank's shuttle launched directly toward the approaching solar storm. Their sensors showed him flying into radiation levels that would kill most Federation species instantly. Yet his ship's systems remained operational and he seemed completely unconcerned. The human pilot is flying directly into the stellar radiation field, Tlinseth reported. This appears to be a suicide mission. Maybe they're trying to sacrifice themselves to warn others, Quindle suggested. No, Zixthara said slowly. He is deploying protective satellites. They are not fleeing from this stellar event. They are preparing to survive it. Frank's voice came over the radio as he positioned the first satellite. Satellite 1 is in position and active. Magnetic field generators are showing green across the board. Copy that, Frank, Nancy replied from the station. Looking good from here. Magnetic field generators? Morduan asked his science team. Are they attempting to replicate planetary magnetic field protection? It appears so. But the energy requirements would be enormous. Their power systems cannot possibly generate sufficient field strength. They were wrong. Nancy's engineering team had learned to work with Earth's own magnetic field, using the planet's natural defenses and amplifying them with technology that channeled rather than fought cosmic forces. It was engineering that worked with nature. Instead of against it, the solar flare hit Earth's solar system like a cosmic tsunami. Radiation levels spiked to levels that would sterilize most inhabited worlds. The Federation ship, safely beyond the outer planets, watched their instruments register energy readings that exceeded their measurement capabilities. The radiation levels are off our scales, Zixthara reported. Nothing could survive in that environment, but humans were surviving. Not only surviving, but continuing to work. Station 1 to ground control. Commander Cross's voice came through clearly. Storm's hitting us pretty hard up here, but all systems are green. The shield modifications are working perfectly. Outstanding work, Station 1. How's the crew holding up? We're fine. Dr. Martinez is actually taking pictures of the aurora effects. Says it's the best light show he's ever seen. The aliens listened to this exchange in stunned silence. The humans were not just surviving what should have been a deadly cosmic disaster, they were enjoying it. Dr. Nancy Davis was in her element, monitoring systems and making real-time adjustments to the station's defenses. The solar storm was pushing her engineering to its limits, but that was exactly where she liked to work. Every challenge was a puzzle to solve. Every problem was an opportunity to innovate. Frank, how are you doing out there? She called to the shuttle pilot. Getting a hell of a light show, Frank replied. The aurora effects are incredible from this angle. You should see this, Nancy. Maybe next time. Right now, I'm busy keeping us all alive. You're doing great. My radiation readings are well within safe limits. The Federation researchers could not believe what they were hearing. The humans were flying through radiation that should have killed them hours ago, and they were commenting on the beauty of the experience. Dr. Davis, Zixthara managed to establish communication with the human station. How are you surviving these radiation levels? We built our technology to work with solar storms instead of against them, Nancy explained. Earth gets hit by these things regularly, so we learn to deal with them. It's all about channeling the energy instead of trying to block it completely. You use the stellar radiation as a power source, among other things. Solar storms are just another part of living near a star. You learn to work with what you've got. The storm raged for 18 hours. When it finally passed, the human orbital station was not only intact but had actually improved its power reserves by channeling some of the solar energy. The Federation ship emerged from its hiding place beyond Pluto to find humans going about their normal activities as if nothing had happened. Ground control to all orbital platforms, came the routine post-storm communication. Storm has passed. Resume normal operations. Copy, ground control. Station 1 returning to standard configuration. Commander Cross stretched and looked out. At the now peaceful Earth below, the planet's atmosphere was still glowing softly with aurora effects and the view was spectacular. Dr. Park, he called to the xenobiologist who had been monitoring the aliens throughout the crisis. You might want to talk to our Federation friends. I think we broke their understanding of physics again. Lisa smiled and opened a communication channel to the alien ship. Federation vessel, this is Dr. Park. How did you folks weather the storm? Dr. Park, Zixthara's voice was filled with something approaching awe. We evacuated the system entirely. How did your people not only survive but continue operations during a Class X solar event? Same way we survive everything else on Earth. Lisa replied, we adapted. We learned to work with our environment instead of fighting it. Dr. Park, may I ask you a question? Of course. Are humans afraid of anything? Lisa thought about it for a moment. Sure, lots of things. But fear doesn't stop us from doing what needs to be done. It just makes us more careful. 6 months later, the Federation Council voted unanimously to invite humanity to join their deep space exploration program. Not as junior partners or protected species, but as the specialists they desperately needed for exploring the dangerous regions of space that had been considered too hostile for intelligent life. The final report filed by Zixthara's research team concluded that humans were not just another species from a death world. They were the species that had learned to turn any environment, no matter how hostile, into home. They were survivors who had become gardeners, warriors who had become healers.